Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another video. So in this video, I'm going to be covering the upgrade of the filtration system for the 1,000 gallon Moray tank. So I already posted a video explaining why I need to make these upgrades. And in this video, I'm just going to go through it. But if you want to exactly know why, I linked the first video below. And yeah, in this video, I'm just going to go through it, show you exactly every step of the way, and I hope you will learn something. Okay, here we are. This project is finally going to start today. I have 4 days off from work, so I hope I can get this done in 4 days. If not, I have to just continue working after work. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the water, remove some of the rocks, put the rocks in these brood trash cans I have back there. And then I will slowly start catching the fish, and then I will distribute the fish into these holding tanks that I have here. So these are 55-gallon tanks that I have set up. So 2 here and 2 here. And I kept them in my kitchen because I want everything close by. But basically, the monofish, the clownfish, and any other small fish will go into these 3 tanks here. The Viper Moray, I'm going to put him in this tank here so I can get some better footage for you guys since you're so interested in this eel. And then the giant Moray and the Tessellata Moray will actually go into the 270-gallon tank that used to be their home. And that's where I currently keep my 2 banana eels, so they have to move around as well. So it's a lot of catching fish, relocating fish temporarily. And then I can finally, remove everything. I may keep the pipe system in place, but we'll see how that goes. And yeah, so I'm going to get started, and I hope you will find this interesting. All right, quick status update. So I've drained about half of the water, and I also removed all of the filter media that were inside these plastic tubs, both rows, front to back, and placed them into these temporary holding tanks for the fish for biological filtration. And didn't know how much of this stuff I actually had, so that's very useful. So all 4 tanks are full with CCAM matrix, biorings, etc. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that I have so much. And I'm also going to show you these brood trash bins. So this is where I'm going to be putting the live rock and some water pumps to keep the bacteria alive. And then lastly, the 270-gallon tank where the giant Moray and the Tessellata used to live in has now been prepped for them. I removed the 3D background because I will redo it anyways, laid some piping for them. And the banana eels that were in there are now in this little fluval flex. And here we can get a little bit closer look. So it's always interesting to see, how much a fish has actually grown, especially fish that hide a lot. So they've definitely grown pretty substantial in size. And yeah, next up will be catching all the fish and putting them into the individual tanks, including the giant Moray, Tessellata Moray, and the Viper Moray. All right, I'm about to start catching the fish. So drop the water just low enough, and looks pretty cool from the top. So going to start collecting all the rocks, working my way from left to right, and then I'm going to be catching the eels and the monofish and whatever else lives in here. Okay, I have almost all the rocks out of the tank. It took a couple of hours actually, and looks like we're going to have a good opportunity to catch the giant Moray because he's not hiding in the rocks like the Viper Moray and the Tessellata Moray. So I'm going to start catching fish, and that will be pretty nerve-wracking. So here we have the Viper Moray and the Tessellata Moray. And one thing I discovered is that if you have trouble catching them, you can actually just move them slowly where you want them to be. So you have to be very gentle, but they don't snap at you.
You know, you just move them into the open so you can put them into the net. So that's just something I just discovered. And the Viper Moray definitely got thicker. He's as thick as the Tessellato, probably even thicker than him. So that's great. So here's a closer look at the Viper Moray. He has grown immensely. Wow, he's really heavy too. Closer look at the Tessellata. So he was a little bit trickier to catch, but they swim really slowly. They don't panic, which is really good. So I will put him in with the giant moray, and then we have the three most important fish, most dangerous fish caught, and the rest should be really easy. I just caught the bigger of the two blue spiny lobsters. So he's grown pretty big as well. He has molted at least 4 or 5 times since I got him. And obviously I have to be really careful that I don't break off any of his antennas. So I will have to be really gentle when I put him into the holding tank. Alright guys, closer look at the Viper Moray now that he's in the holding tank. And yeah, he has gotten so thick that he wouldn't even fit into the 1.5 inch PVC piping that I gave to him when he was in the quarantine tank when I tried to get him to feed. So I'm really happy to see him being well fed, and his teeth obviously. So that's really great. So the monofish are extremely fast and difficult to catch, so I'm going to shift my focus on removing the sand. And obviously I do not want to remove, hermit crabs or little snails. So I came up with an idea. So this is basically a python siphon, and I basically used a 2-inch PVC coupling. I have a snap-in at the front, so this will make sure that only the fine sand gets sucked up. And then I have a 2-inch to 1.5 inch reducer, and that works really well to make sure that I only have fine sand in my bucket and no hermit crabs, snails, or anything that I want to keep. Okay, so I'm about to get started on laying down the underground. So I just have to clean up some of the sand that is still left. But basically it's going to look very similar to this background. It's just going to lay on the bottom, and no sand is going to be in the tank, so that will be really easy for maintenance. And the fish have all been placed into individual holding tanks. So these are all the small critters. Here we have some of the monofish and the bigger spiny lobster that I have. Here we have the Viper Moray. I will make a separate video on him and his progress. He looks very healthy. Here we have the 270-gallon tank, which used to be the home of the giant moray and the Tessellata moray. They are currently back in this tank, along with the emperor angel and some other smaller fish. So they're used to this setup, but obviously they're going to be much happier when they're in the bigger tank again. Alright, so I just finished installing the 3D underground. And as you can see, it's a lot brighter than the 3D background. And I actually like that because the one thing that I liked most about the sand was that how it reflected the light. And therefore I was able to light the tank without cranking up the intensity on my lights. But with this, I only need to maybe crank it up a little more to get the similar effect. But overall, this is going to be very easy to maintain. There's going to be no accumulation of dirt, especially once I have finished installing the closed loop system, which I will be doing next. But yeah, everything went really well, and stay tuned for the next clip. Okay, so I'm done with the closed loop system, and now I want to show you some of the details. So basically, I have 4 holes on the bottom of this tank. And my idea originally was to use 2 of them as the drains and 2 of them as the returns. So we would have water draining and being returned immediately times 2 to create a bunch of flow, on the bottom of this tank. But after further consideration, I decided to go a different route because I have been really worried that something could be leaking when I have 2, openings on the bottom where water is constantly putting pressure on this pipe system underneath the tank. and I don't want to end up with 1,000 gallons of salt water on my living room floor. So I decided to do something different. So I decided to use 3 of these bottom holes as the return, and the way that this 1 horsepower pump is being fed with water is actually through an opening underneath this overflow box. So basically here I have 4 pipes, and this one is going to be used to feed this pump. So basically, if I ever have some problems with my piping, the most amount of water that can end up on the floor is what's in this overflow box, or actually only from here on up, because the pipe will be up to here. And so that takes that fear away. And now when it comes to the returns, as you can see, I chose to use one-way check valves, and I'm going to be using them inside the tank. So when this pump is being turned off, the water isn't immediately rushing down and putting pressure on this pipe system. The water is actually being stopped inside the tank, so it never makes it to the pipes, and therefore keeping all the pressure away. So obviously, this may look a little bit unsightly, but I did use clear ones to keep it as good looking as possible. And as you can see, I installed 4-way connectors, you can call them, and I installed a 2-inch to 1-inch reducer in each of the 3 openings from the top. And what I did there is I installed these water flow accelerators. So this is what I also had up here for the return. And basically this is going to amplify the flow even further. And I have a couple more to install here, but basically I'm going to be pointing them everywhere towards the bottom to really create a bunch of flow. And the last thing I want to talk about is this 4th opening here on the bottom that will be used for a drain. So that's the only one that has me worried, because water changes on this aquarium are really labor intensive, because I change 25% of the water, which is 250 gallons, which takes forever to pump out of this aquarium with the utility pump. So basically what I've done here is I installed a strainer on top, and then the water is going to go down, and I have not 1 but 2 union ball valves. So if this one fails, I can fall back to this one. If this one fails, this one is the main one. And if either fails, I can actually unscrew them and replace them. And the water is going to come out here. And what I'm going to be doing here is I will be hooking up a discharge hose. These are these blue hoses that people use for discharging water. And because this is going to be gravity fed, I don't have to use any electricity, and it's going to go a lot faster. So that is really great. But obviously this here is the one weakness in this tank that I'm really worried about. If I ever have a leak, up there, and then, the whole tank could drain. So what I'm going to be doing on top of that is, when I'm done with my water changes, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be placing something on top of this opening. And here I have a 2-inch coupler, and I have a 2-inch to 1-inch reducer, and I have a 1-inch pipe. And basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sticking this on top of this opening, and it's going to be all the way to the top, so that it simply cannot, cause any water leaking onto my floor, because it's going to be shut off from the top. So I ordered a clear PVC one, so that it doesn't look so ugly. And what you can also do when you have something like this, you can, let's say you want to drain the water up to like here, you can cut the pipe to the height of this spot. So basically you can open up the valve on the bottom, walk away, and the water will only drain to where this pipe ends. So that's going to make it very easy for water changes. And then you can, mark exactly, where the water always ends up being. So when you prepare the salt water, you know exactly how much you have to make, so there's no fluctuations. So that's going to make it a lot easier. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is installing the filtration. And so I will be using multiple of these 55-gallon tanks and daisy chain them on the back. And then I will have a bead filter installed that I will show you later. And then this will be placed somewhere else. This will no longer be part of the filtration. This is the refugium because I won't need one. So I'm going to keep going and provide you with an update shortly. All right, now we're going to be talking about the filtration. So this is the Ultima 2 from Aqua Ultraviolet, and this one is rated for 6,000 gallons. But for salt water, you have to basically divide it in half. So 3,000 gallons is what you can expect for this, and my tank is 1,000 gallons. And if you ever buy a used one like I have, you're gonna have a lot of work to do to clean all these beads. But these are basically where the beneficial bacteria will grow. So I have a bucket here, I have a full, brute 55-gallon bucket here. So this is a lot of biomedia that will replace the sand that I have removed from the aquarium. And one tip I wanted to share with you when it comes to cleaning these is I basically have water going to turn these over, and then I'm going to stick in a pump that has openings that are smaller than these beads, so they kind of get sucked into the pump. And then basically, as the water turns over, the pump will pump out all the dirt that is stuck in these beads. And that works pretty well. It takes probably, 5 to 6 times to do this, but at the end, you're going to get most of it out. And whatever sand was stuck in these will just settle on the bottom. And then you just make sure you don't put that back into your filter. All right, guys, so I just finished installing all the piping for the closed loop system as well as the filtration. And I filled up the water all the way to the top, and now it's time to test if this pump is able to, push the water nicely everywhere where I want it to go. So let's turn on the pump. And here we see how the pump is pushing the water all the way around, which is really great. All right, so before I continue with this project, I just wanted to cover a few things. So if you have seen a video of this aquarium before, and especially taken a close look at the pipe system, you may have noticed that it used to have this piece in front of each of the 3 openings. But I decided to remove it because, for one, none of the eels really like to be in this bottom section of the pipe. They like to be up high. And secondly, the Viper Moray and the Tessellata Moray, they really like to be in the back there and, snuggle back there, basically. But before, when this pipe system was all the way to the back, there just wasn't enough space. So I decided to push it a little bit forward and then be able to create some more hiding spaces for them. So that's going to be really cool. And then the giant Moray, what he likes to do is he likes to go through the pipe system, come out, swim down, and go back in, and then keeps going into a loop. And when there's another Moray in this area, there's sometimes not enough space for them to both, pass each other. So having more space in the front is going to be really beneficial for them, especially when they get bigger and thicker. And also the monofish, when they sleep at night, they like to sleep by hovering above the ground. So they like to be active up in the upper part during the day, but when they sleep, they like to be hovering above the background, the underground. So by having more space for them, the whole group of 29 monofish will be able to peacefully sleep on the bottom. And what else? I decided to purchase a couple of pieces of 6-inch PVC pipe because the giant Moray is a very soon, probably in about a year from now, going to outgrow this pipe system if he keeps growing in this current pace. So I'm just going to connect 3 of these pieces and lay this across on top of this existing pipe system. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get black. This is the only color I was able to get, so we'll cover it as much as possible with rocks to keep the green out of the tank. And so I'm going to start working on that, and I will be providing you an update pretty soon. All right, guys, I'm finally done with this project. So let's go over the results. So overall, I think everything went really well. The eels are very happy,
and all the other fish are very happy as well. So yeah, let's see. You may have noticed all these air bubbles now, and some people may think this looks cheesy, but the reason why I decided to do that is because, as you may remember, the main reason why I had to redo this filtration system is because of ammonia and nitrite accumulating in the bottom of this tank because there was no flow and there was no way to get it out of the bottom. So ammonia and nitrite are heavy gases, so they do settle on the bottom, and the problem with that is the moray eels spend a lot of time at the bottom, so they are more exposed to that than the monofish, for example, who always swim at the upper part, or for the most part the upper part. So I decided to install these air stones because I wanted to have another way of pushing up the ammonia and nitrite towards the top where the gases can dissipate. And I mean, it's not going to make a huge difference because it's only at 4 spots in the tank, but it does help. So the eels, when they do move around at the bottom, they do push the ammonia and nitrite around, and it will be carried towards the top. So, and it provides additional aeration, so I can't complain. And yeah, so let's see, the pipe system. So you may remember that I removed the front pieces to have more space at the front. Also because I never really saw the eels use the lower part of the pipe section. But funny enough, ever since I've redesigned this, they actually love to use this bottom section. But I'm not going to put in the pieces again because I like it how it is now. And I think the reason why they like it more now is because the openings are now covered with rocks. So they're kind of like receded in this whole mountain of rocks. So I guess before they weren't really feeling comfortable, but now it makes them more comfortable to use them. And some of the openings like this one, the eels cannot really get into the rockwork. They have to go through the pipe system. But here they can go around it if they want to. So yeah, let's see. The 6-inch pipe that I told you about earlier is this one right here now. It's laying all the way across, and it's actually black because I decided to spray paint it with this aquarium safe spray paint. And painted a few other things with that same paint. So some of this piping up here, and here's a giant moray, very happy. And yeah, so this pipe is mainly for him when he grows too fat for this pipe system that he's in now, which has a 4-inch diameter. So 6 inch should be plenty of space for him. And back here, this is actually now an open area all the way to the back. So there's no more rocks, providing any obstacles. So you basically have 2 areas where a big moray could, hide their entire body. So that's really, really good. And also, now that I've removed the sand, I actually have about a 6-inch clearance from the bottom to the top of this pipe system because the feet are about 6 inches. So that's really good. And what else? The tessellata, he likes this new design as well. So he's actually back there. So this area back there was never really used before by any fish, but the tessellata now likes to hang out back there. And yeah, so that's really good. And yeah, so when it comes to now this closed loop system, so as you know, I installed it because I wanted to generate a lot of flow in the bottom. And it's actually, this pump is actually so strong that I'm not going to continuously run it. So maybe only like 30 minutes a day to really get the dirt up and make it go through the overflow system. And yeah, so I'm going to demonstrate that now. So just to give you an idea what it's going to be like. So let me pull up my phone and turn on the system. So I'm going to turn it on now. And as you can see, the pump is pushing the water deep inside the rock, and all the fine particles are now being pushed into the open. And you can see it up there too. It's starting to get a little bit foggy. So that's really great. I would never be able to get all these fine particles, you know, the way this tank was set up before with my little, you know, power head sticking it in the corners. You know, this really goes everywhere. It creates a lot of bubbles, so that's the only downside, and that's why I'm not going to run this, you know, 24/7 because it looks like Sprite water now. But it does what it's supposed to do. It pushes, you know, water around deep inside the rockwork to keep this rockwork clean. And as you can see, you know, stuff is going into the overflow box. So yeah, it looks to be working just the way I want it to. So I'm going to turn this off now so that it doesn't get too crazy. But yeah, what else can I tell you? So the rockwork in this tank is now a little bit different because the base rock that I have here, you can actually buy two different types of base rock. You can buy the Carib Sea, South Sea based rock. If you get the 40-pound version, what you do get is about 8 to 10 rocks of this size, or maybe 2 or 3 a little bit bigger, and that's it. But a different type of rock called the Nations Ocean Natural Coral Aquarium based rock is also being sold in 40 pounds, but you only get 2 or 3 rocks, and therefore you get these huge rocks. So I actually bought a couple more 40-pound bags, and because obviously the giant moray and the tessellata moray, they are already big and strong there, but they become even bigger and stronger. So this entire, you know, rock formation consists almost exclusively of these bigger rocks. So I don't have to worry about rocks toppling over. It's a lot safer. So the only rock I'm a little bit worried about is this one. If an eel snakes through, it could push this rock up and forward and hit the, you know, the front panel. So I may have to do something there, but yeah. So the wood up there, you know, this is also, I mean, a little bit controversial. I mean, there are places in the world where wood does meet salt water, like the mangroves. But I do like it because the monofish, they absolutely love the additional hiding spaces, and the moray eels, especially the giant moray, since he swims around so much, he loves to, you know, navigate through, you know, the wood instead of just having one open space. He likes to have, you know, a little bit of an obstacle course now. So that's really good. And you can see they are very happy, very active. You know, both eels are still exploring, still getting used to the tank. And the third eel, the viper moray, he's still adjusting, so he's still not eating. He was eating up until I did the redesign, so he was in a holding tank for 2 weeks, and it's been a couple days now since he's back in here. But he's still, you know, acclimating. Almost every time you redo an aquarium and you put in the eels, it's a new tank for them, and they usually go on a hunger strike. I mean, 90% of the time, so this is expected. The giant moray is already eating, the tessellata isn't, and the viper isn't either. So, and I still have to find out where he likes to hang out. So before he used to hang out here, and I would just drop the food here. But now that this is all open, he probably doesn't like that because he likes to be like really, you know, squeezed into tiny crevices. So I have to figure out where he decided to hang out so that I can just drop the food there. And yeah, so I think this is going to be a lot better for maintenance. The bead filter is working really well. So let me give you a little bit of overview what I've done here. So the water goes into this 55-gallon tank, and then it's being skimmed. And here we have a carbon reactor, and then it basically goes from this 55-gallon tank into a second one, which is full of biological media like CCAM matrix, biorings, etc. And then back there we have a third one. And in this third one we have the return pump, which feeds the bead filter. So this return pump sits down here, and it feeds the water back into the filter. And what I'm doing here is I'm constantly putting bacteria into this part of the filtration, so it gets fed into the bead filter right away, so that the filter gets seeded with bacteria. And as you know, I'm using you know, a special type of bacteria for big fish.
So, you can use the regular type of bacteria, but what I like to use is something specific for big moray eels, so or monster fish, and that is this stuff here, Monster 460. Even has a picture of a big moray and triggerfish. So this stuff is a lot better to seed filter like this. And as you know, this is filled to the brim, with filter media. So this, and it's constantly turning over. So the bacteria is always the strongest bacteria is going to be living in there, because the dead bacteria will fall to the bottom and be washed out during maintenance. So this filter right there is going to more than replace the sand that I had before. And I have none of the drawbacks with the sand. I have no dead spots. I have no accumulation of waste deep into a sandbed. So it's going to be a lot easier to maintain and to keep the water parameters in check. And also to reduce the amount of water changes I have to do, because the nitrates will stay lower for longer. And yeah, so what's going to be next? So I decided to start stocking this tank with more fish. So I will be buying some angelfish, some tangs, some butterfly fish, just to get a little bit more coloration, because he is the only angelfish I have. I mean, he looks stunning, of course, but the monofish, they look nice too, but they're just a little bit too bland for my taste. I like their behavior, the schooling behavior, but color-wise, this tank could use a little bit more. So yeah, this will be one of the next videos. So if you're interested in what I've chosen to live with these eels, stay tuned. They have never eaten a single fish ever, including the viper moray. So, but I did decide to remove the clownfish and put them into the banana tank. These two are the only ones in there because they're an aggressive mated pair. And yeah, so the tank mates that I will choose, even if the eels start to become a little bit territorial and aggressive, they will be able to stand their ground and fend them off. So I don't see any problems with that. So yeah, this is it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope it wasn't too long. I can tell you the eels are very happy. They have never been this active before. So I'm especially during the day. So they're constantly exploring, constantly swimming around, and even the tessellata. So he usually doesn't swim as much. And monofish are not only swimming, in the front, they're actually going into the back too, which they have never done before. Very likely thanks to this woodwork that I've done. It created a little bit of more, hiding spaces. And the only thing that I don't like is that this 3D underground is lifting in some spots here. That is because there's air trapped underneath. So I'm not sure how long it will take for that to flatten. So I did place these rocks here on top of it to help it push down. And I actually like it too, because it gives this tank a more of a three-dimensional effect. So you don't just have a bunch of rocks at the back and nothing in the front. So the back and the front are kind of, transitioning from the back to the front by placing these rocks there. So it gives it a little bit of a 3D effect too. And so I may just keep it like this actually. So, but we'll see. Yeah, other than that, again, thank you very much for watching. Next video will be about new tank mates for these eels and for this tank in general. Another video will be an update to the banana eels, because their tank has to be completely redone. And yeah, and anything else that will come up. So thank you again. I will give you another look at this tank from the back. It looks absolutely stunning. I really like these bubbles actually, because it gives you a more of a, it kind of has a relaxing effect. So I don't know, it's kind of hypnotizing to constantly see these bubbles go up. And I'm looking at this tank more than I used to actually, because of these bubbles. So it's very calming, very relaxing. And the eels like it too. They like to actually be close to these air zones and have the water bubbles, tickle their noses. So yeah, I was afraid they may not like it, but they do. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this episode, and I hope I see you again in the next one. Thank you.